As I have been announced, I wanted to hear how men are empowering women, and this time I brought someone who wants to share with us what he thinks. He is leading with empathy, fostering collaboration with teams, and championing women empowerment both professionally and personally. He is Sergio Maestri, an independent consultant with over 2 decades of experience in asset management, financial services, and tech startups. His journey has taken him across 7 countries, shaping his unique perspective on fostering inclusive workplaces and empowering women. During our conversation, Sergio offers concrete actions for men to support gender equality and shares practical examples of successful initiatives in empowering women and promoting diversity and inclusion. He opens up about the transformative power of fatherhood and his advocacy for mandatory parental leave for fathers, leveling the professional playing field for all. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and feel comfortable to be inspired and motivated by our guest today and discover how you can make a difference in creating a more inclusive and equitable workplace culture. Welcome to the Brilliantly Branded Podcast. More time to the Brilliantly Branded Podcast. You know that this is women empowerment through the lens of branding. And here we are having conversations with our guests who are delivering learning, inspiration based on their experiences. We all are unique, and having the opportunity to have that voice across the podcast and share as well our thoughts on the way how we are connecting emotionally with others, which is actually the main purpose of branding, have been bringing an empowering tool to make changes. So those changes are related with bridging the gender gap, for example, listening to and understanding what are the realities happening in different moments or life or environments, actually. So today, we have the pleasure of welcoming a man who has led global teams, spearhead client strategies, and championed diversity and inclusion initiatives as well. So he is an independent consultant today with experiences in asset management, financial services, and tech startups. So his journey has taken him across 7 countries. He will give us details later on, and providing him with invaluable insights into diverse businesses, landscapes, and cultural dynamics as well. So I give a warm welcome, and our conversation will be about how he is supporting women to empower them within this professional sphere. So welcome, Sergio. And now that I made this introduction about you, could you tell us a bit more about who you are and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you so much for the invite to the Brilliantly podcast. I think it's really an honor for me to be one of the few men that have appeared on the podcast so far, and I hope to be to have many more come in the future. I think that for me, being able to talk about my experience of empowering women is a true privilege. This is something that came to me through my life, personal and professional, and something that I'm passionate about. A little bit about myself. I am Italian. I was born and raised in Italy. I then studied at university in Italy and in Spain. I was then for a year in Brussels, where I was in the board of one of the largest European student association. And our goal, the student association name is AEG, and the goal was to bring together students from all over Europe, regardless of political boundaries. This was more than 25 years ago, but it was an extraordinary time when I made some fantastic friends, and I learned a lot about diversity, cultural diversity, and how you have many different ways to skin a cat, and different people with different background can provide valuable solutions and valuable ideas. I also had a lot of fun along the way.
I can imagine.
After that, I was back in Italy, where I started my professional career, and for a couple of years I was leading a branch of our equipment company called Adecco. And after that, I spent 6 months in Poland. And finally, exactly 20 years ago, I arrived to Luxembourg, where I started my career in the financial industry. Although I studied economy and business, it wasn't really my dream to work in finance or in a bank, but it kind of came to me, and I didn't really. I was surprised by what I found. I didn't realize how much of a human element there is in such an organization, where you have really opportunity to work with people and for people. So probably for the first few years of my career, I was in an individual contributor role, and then I start to take more responsibility, and I start to have responsibility over teams. And in 2010, I've been asked to relocate to Hong Kong, and that was the start of an incredible journey. I'd never been to Asia prior to my first trip, and this was really a very exciting time with the company. We were building a new business and department in Asia, and my role was to coordinate all the operational aspects, as well as lead the client service and relationship management team, which at the time was based in Hong Kong and in Japan. I stayed in Asia for 6 years, and through these 6 years, we actually expanded to China and to Singapore and to Australia. So during that time, I had a lot of travels through those different countries in Asia. I also explored a lot for my own personal curiosity. And then in 2016, just about the time of Brexit, I was asked to move to London and take a global role. At the time, I was practically, I spent more time in an airport and on a plane than I was at home. I had the privilege to lead a team of very talented people, and I always had that connection with Luxembourg. I had a team in Luxembourg, and I was here probably once a month. So finally, in 2018, I made a decision to come back to Luxembourg because I believe Luxembourg is a fantastic place to bring up a family, and as well a place that has that is closer to Italy, to my parents, for example, but also a place where I have a lot of friends. So since 2018, I've been back. In 2021, I had an opportunity to make a career change, and I joined another organization where I had a very challenging task to change and bring together the teams that were looking after AML, anti-money laundering, and terrorist financing prevention for Luxembourg, Switzerland, and Russia, which was very, very, very interesting to see how a different organization was tackling similar issues. And eventually, more or less a year ago, I made a decision to take some time off from my career and to focus on the family, as I had 2 small kids. And now for the last 4 months, I've been flying solo, having my own consultancy business, where I help organizations drive change and deliver change.
Wow, Sergio, thank you very much for sharing that background with us, because I think that you give us important details, actually, for me to be very curious about how you have been supporting and empowering women through this journey. Because this impressive career, I mean, you have been in multiple countries, multiple industries, and I'm curious to know about how do you leverage your expertise to support and empower women in their workplace.
Yes, I think that first of all, I made a lot of mistakes and I failed a lot. One sentence that I really like is to say that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So in my case, I certainly had a lot of bad judgment in the early phase of my life and my career. But I'm a very curious person, and I like to learn from mistakes, and I like to learn from people. And one thing that I'm very passionate is about equality, and it's about ensuring that in the workplace there's a proper meritocracy in place, and people that have the right approach, the right tools, the right mentality are given opportunities. So for me, leading teams and being in that position of responsibility has always felt as a privilege. It's something where it comes with responsibility, and it comes with an obligation to do a fair job, to do an excellent job in enhancing people's potential. And this has been something that I put myself heart and soul. I really took the role of a manager as that of someone that is actually helping, coaching, and leading people. And in that context, for me, the topic of empowering women is very important, alongside with the topic of empowering other people that are in a situation of disadvantage, supporting diversity, supporting people that are that could be in a negative connotation. One of the most important tools that I used through my career and I use today is to have dialogue and to be very, very methodic about the communication channel that I establish with my team members. One thing I believe is that there are a lot of elements to a person, a lot of different sides that people might or might not show in the workplace. And what is very important when talking about difficult topics is to create a safe environment. And I'll give you more example as we continue our conversation. But for me, one way to create a safe environment is to have very regular communication, to provide feedback. Try to sometimes it's very easy to provide negative feedback. That's what we are all wired to do. When we see something we don't like, it's easy to say that we are not happy with that. But actually providing positive feedback is something that you have to almost push yourself to do it in a coordinated way. So for me, one of the, if not the most important tool that I had was to establish regular one-to-one with the people that were in my organization, and ensure that that time was not a time for me to assign more work or to criticize their work or to use it on a specific project, but really that time was an open agenda to talk about whatever was important for my colleague. And often when I explain this to people on the first meeting, and I say, well, my approach is to have a meeting once a week for half an hour. The usual reaction is people are a bit shocked. They're like, "What? Are you going to micromanage me? Are you going to be on top of? You're going to be on top of my back? Are you?" And then I explain to people that, well, actually, no. It's more of an opportunity for us to build our relationship and to get to know each other, and also it's a way for me to make myself available. You know that half an hour every week. If it's Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I will be there, either in person, or if I'm traveling, I will be somewhere in the world, and I will log in on a video call. And then over time, if I was to skip one of those meetings, people would be calling me and saying, "Well, Sergio, are we not having the one-to-one this week?" Because you realize that the more you open up and the more you talk and the more you show curiosity, and true curiosity is not just a fake curiosity. You're genuinely interested in understanding what's up with people and what are their career plans, what are their challenges, how can I help them. That brings a relationship that goes a bit deeper than the normal relationship you would have on a workplace. And through that process, you establish a safe zone. So another sort of rule for those meetings is to have them in a closed room. So very often I hear people say, "Oh, well, I meet with my team or with my team members. I meet with them once every 3 months, once every 6 months, because anyway, we sit next to each other on the open floor. So I know what's going on. I know what's happening. They can talk to me every time." But actually, what people will talk about when they are in a closed room can be extremely different than what they talk about when they are on open floor. Again, I have never asked people to share with me anything that they were not comfortable sharing. But by creating that safe space, I got to learn some very personal parts of their life. I shared some very personal parts of my life as well, and I understand much better what were some of the challenges that they were having, and what were some of the motivation that they had, and through that process, I created that bond and that safe space, which I think in the case of women, for example, meant that hopefully I decrease some of the stress that can be caused by having this big conversation with your manager about, for example, wanting to take a part-time because you want to spend more time, or you have to spend more time with your kids. I got to learn about things that as a man I never thought about.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me was an eye-opener. I have had incredibly enlightening conversation with colleagues and with friends, where I learned that something that to me was very simple and not stressful and very straightforward could have been something that somebody didn't sleep for 3 days to prepare for a conversation, or something that stressed someone a lot because of their individual history and because of their past, but also because of their character and because of what they expected the reaction was. So for me, one of the reasons I thought it was a great idea to join this podcast was to share those experiences, because I had many conversations with colleagues, men or women, through my career. And I thought that sharing some of the practical example is a way of giving back. It's a way of helping others perhaps not repeat some of the mistakes that I made through my career and my life.
Correct. Well, you have been delivering important content, Sergio, because especially I think, when you describe those practices and the way that you have been doing things, I'm feeling seen, heard, and understood right away. But what happened with men? I mean, what happened with men in general? And based on your experience, what are these concrete actions that men can take actively to support and probably have the same environments and create those environments that you are creating? Because as well, I have been seeing this and living that actually in the corporate world, more common for women, but sometimes a bit difficult that men take that initiative. So I love that you explained that you have been done that. So that means that it's possible to do it that from a man. But the thing is, what you will advise to men directly based on your experience.
I think the most important is to listen and to be open to understand a different point of view. And again, this applies to women. It also applies to other people that are in a diverse situation. But I think it's really important to take the time and listen and just ask open questions, create that safe situation. I give you an example. For a large part of my career, when I thought about team building event, I thought, well, I will bring the team for dinner, or I will bring the team for drinks after work. And I thought, well, I'm such a great manager. I organize all these social events for the team, and everybody's having a laugh. And then I realized that, well, there were some people that were not participating, or there were some people that if we changed things at the last minute, they were a bit unhappy about that. And I thought, wow, here I am. I'm flying in from London to spend the evening with the team, and we're going to this great bar, and the music is fantastic. Why is not everybody enjoying? But then I asked the question. I said, are we doing something that could be done better? And then I realized, well, actually, one person, she had to arrange for a babysitter because the husband was traveling on the same week. and she had the kids at home, and she was a bit stressed because the babysitter was late, and the babysitter didn't respond to a message, or for example, somebody had a long commute, and they were worried about going back home late, and that's when I realized, okay, well, what works for me might not work for everybody else. For me, it's great to go out and have a laugh and have a night out with the team. But for other people, actually, that's very inconvenient, and they much rather socialize in a different way. So I started to do breakfast team event, and actually that's when everybody in the team was participating. We started to do, for example, bring your own breakfast, and we had some incredible cakes and people baking, and we still achieved the goal of having a level of socialization within the team, having 1 hour that is not dedicated to talk about the latest project that is late, or the latest client that is being challenging, but is dedicated to create the culture within the team. And that's something that happens when you put people together and you have them share a meal. I'm Italian, so for us, when you talk about relationship and connection, very often, if not most of the time, we talk about having a meal together. So that's an example of something where I think men, we can do a better job in listening, and listening starts with also asking the right questions, and as it's also about making sure that you create that safe environment, because if you don't create a safe environment, you can ask many times, but you will get only generic answers, or will not get to the root of an issue. I can give you another example. It happened very often to me to remain in the office late, and you have to finish a presentation, or you have to finish a report. You sit and you do what you need to do. What I didn't realize is that for some of my colleagues, being in the office alone with me was actually something that made me uncomfortable. Not because of me, but because of experiences they had in the past, where they have been in situations that were not actually a horrible situation. I had one colleague that she shared with me that she was basically receiving unwanted advances from a colleague, and she said, "Well, no, I'm never going to stay. I'm never going to be the last one in the office with a guy, or someone that had again personal situation where just that part of being in the office alone after hours was making the person uncomfortable." And again, this is something which I would have it never crossed my mind because of my experience and my background. But hearing from people sharing their stories made me realize that, well, I need to make sure that there is an option of not staying late and working on a presentation, or there is an option of having more people around, or just being thoughtful about the situation.
Well, that surprised me from the point of view that things should not be happening, is actually what you mentioned, to building the communication, building the relationship, and fostering this collaboration between the team and the people that you are working around and surrounded yourself. That should not be a source of not trust in stay late in the office. So that is surprising me, because it says how you really address this kind of situation. How do you really work in peace and perform well if you are having that concern, behind, like, well, I'm not going to work late or doing this or that. But actually, in terms of collaboration and this mutual respect, do you have any advice that you can say to people in general to foster that, especially between men and women, actually, that is going to be essential for there to collaborate together? Because if I am alone, for example, but I have a good relationship with someone of my team, I will openly said, don't or stay with me until late or whatever, actually to get it a better communication? Or what you will be advised in that case?
I think you mentioned the key word there is the communication, and it's about fostering that open communication and making sure that people are feeling heard, and they're feeling that if obviously we cannot stereotype. You can have a woman that loves to go out and socialize in the evening, and she doesn't have concerns about having to be back before midnight. And you can have men that will never go out in the evening because they have an older parent at home that they're caring for, or they are taking care of the children. So we should never group people together and think that behaviors are going to be similar. But it is important to also understand that there are vulnerabilities, and there are communication style where somebody might not be as upfront with sharing their concerns. So, the example that we just talked about, I was shocked when I learned what happened to that person. But actually, it's not the only example. I had many more through my career and my life from colleagues and also friends that shared some really concerning stories about what happens in the workplace. Again, I heard some of the stories and I was like, no, that cannot be. It's impossible. I mean, in 2021, I cannot believe that a manager will walk around the floor and give a shoulder massage to the women in the office. But that happened. That happened in 2020 or 2019. Maybe it's still happening here. Of course, we are in Luxembourg. It's a very privileged place to be. But let's not forget, around the world, the level of respect and the relationship is still nowhere near where it needs to be. So for me, again, men, we can do a lot. I have been a part of different working groups and different initiatives on diversity. It has been the case quite often that I was the only man in the room when important topics around gender diversity and gender bias were being discussed. And on one hand, I felt slightly uncomfortable because it's quite intimidating to be in a room and be the only man and have 30 women discuss about what the issues are and what the solutions could be. But on the other hand, I always felt at peace with myself that I'm actually in the right place at the right time. The problem is why there's why I'm not joined by other colleagues that are there to listen and to learn. I remember one time in London, I was in one of those events organized by the Women in Leadership working group, and one of the topics that they discussed was about the anxiety that a woman was having during the 2 months between finding out that she was pregnant and reaching the third month, where she would then tell her manager, and how for 2 months that caused her a lot of stress because she didn't know what the reaction will be, she didn't know what the impact on her career will be, and how she prepared that conversation and how she repeated the conversation, how she had notes and so on, and how she finally arrived to have the conversation. And I've been on the receiving end of those conversations very often. And for me, I never thought, okay, well, this is such an important conversation for this person, because for me, it was always like, well, I'm delighted you're pregnant. That's great. We'll support you, and we'll make sure that whatever you need, we are here to support you. But not everybody has that approach, and not everybody is perceived to have that approach. So sometimes that anxiety could also end up being unjustified, because actually when you have that communication with your manager, you can be surprised by the positive reaction. But the simple fact that there is this tension, this anxiety, it's something which I never really thought about and appreciated.
Yeah, well, one of the things is that this intimidation that you feel being in a big group of women and you be the only man, it happened a lot the same in the contrary way for women, especially working in the financial sector or, well, many other different industries that I have been heard actually from all the women that have been arriving here and expressing that situation. But actually, what do you think that we can say right now to involving more men in this conversation about bridging the gender gap, because this is a problem, this is a fact, and how we can really make that call? What do you think that could be nice for men to listen into right now?
I think it's as a man, we don't have to have a specific reason to support the cause of gender balance. I mean, we are the son of somebody. We might be the father of a baby girl, and we might be the husband or the boyfriend or the partner of a woman. So I don't think that man needs a big incentivation. And in fact, I think most men are well intended, and many men are supportive of the cause. It's more about enabling them and giving them the tools and making them aware that, okay, when there is an event organized within your company about, for example, women empowerment, well, it's not just women sitting together in a circle, patting each other on their back on why they're not progressing their career, but it's actually an opportunity for an exchange and to listen and to hear others' opinion. So I think that that's a very important part. The second part is to really be supportive, and I see that there is really this idea that we have this great career and we do it by ourselves, and we are a self-made man or a self-made woman. But actually, it's absolutely not true. We are the result of the interaction that we had. We are the result of the mentors that we had, of the support that we had. It takes a village to raise a kid, as they say. So for me, having that empathy to understand that when a colleague is having difficulties, maybe it's a good time to go for a coffee and have a conversation. And the conversation, very often they start from something which is very business related. So it's about somebody could be upset because they made a proposal in a meeting and that proposal was not taken. But actually, the problem is not the proposal itself. The problem is the way the person felt patronized, or the way the person felt that because of her gender, she was not being heard as someone else. Now those are very very personal perceptions, and those are very individual reactions to situations. Often they are based on reality, but sometimes they're also just based in perception. And I think that just by having that conversation and that support and offering that to just talk things through, that can be extremely helpful. I can give you an example of one situation. For example, I had a colleague that I could see that she was a bit drifting. She wasn't quite as focused. She wasn't quite as, you could see that from being somebody that was always on top of her email and on top of her messages and delivering on time. She started to seem a bit less engaged and less focused. And well, I spoke with her, but it wasn't about why you're not so focused, but it was more about sharing some of the challenges I was going through at that time. And through the conversation, she shared that well, actually, the mother of her husband was being diagnosed with cancer, and they were discussing what to do, and that one of the options was to change country, to go back to the country of the husband. and she was very very torn by this, because she loved her career, she loved what she was doing, she loved her colleagues, and she didn't know how to approach it. And in that conversation, it was actually, I didn't have a magic wand where I could fix the problem for her, but I gave her that. I mean, she gave me the privilege of listening to her story, and then we started to brainstorming how we could approach this and what idea we could do, and then eventually we managed to find a solution where she stayed in the company. The company created a position in another country for her, and we managed to transfer her to that position. And again, it would have never happened as a conversation if we didn't create that safe situation, and we didn't offer that helping hand.
I love what you say, because listening to all the things that you have been delivering until now just make me conclude that you are leading with empathy. Leading with empathy is something that you give the opportunity to people to feeling, seeing her and understood, and actually listening to understand and not to respond. That is the other thing that happening normally when you go and say something, and the people, you mentioned do a better questions, is true. But if the other side is not ready to really pay attention and listening to understand what is happening, then the chaos will become, and the things will not working well. And just to start to wrap up, Sergio, is this one topic that I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about in certain way about the how we collaborate between men and women. And I know that many women that have, for example, the parental leave, they take the parental leave, but not the men. So what do you think? What are your thoughts related with that topic, and what you will be probably advised related with that?
Yes, that's a very, very, it's a topic that is very close to my heart. I have three wonderful kids. My first son is now 17 and a half and about to go to university. And back 17 years ago, I didn't even think that taking a parental leave for myself was an option. I think 17 years ago, it was available as a possibility to take 6 months off as a father. But there was still a certain stigma in the workplace. It wasn't obvious, it wasn't declared, but everybody knew who were the three guys in the company that had taken a parental leave. Now I have two small babies, and a year and a half ago I made a decision to take a parental leave myself. Because I've been preaching about parental leave, and I've been talking about the importance of the learning that happens when usually a mother is away on maternity leave. In fact, I've been part of many promotion committee, and I've always been vocal on, well, it doesn't matter if the person has not been here half of the year, because the person has not been just going to the beach and doing nothing, but the person has been learning something which is incredibly valuable for the workplace, which is, for example, dealing with multiple issues at the same time, being organized, being emotionally resilient, and topic of that nature. So back to the theme of fathers and parental leave. I absolutely think that this is one of the biggest obstacles to a true gender balance, is the fact that mothers are capable of doing something that as a man we're not, which is to have a life and to bring a life within themselves. So it is extremely important that they have then the time before and after birth to dedicate to themselves and to the child, and that's something which, again, in the workplace should be absolutely normal. But also fathers, we are at that generational switch, we are at the generational change. we're no longer sitting in a room full of smoke and having a cigar with our friends. But we started to go in the delivery rooms and assisting. We started to change nappies. We started to give the bottle, and I think that having more and more men take that opportunity of taking a parental leave will be enormously beneficial, because first of all you decrease the gap. So if there is a child coming, you have equal chances that the mother will be off and the father will be off. So
Yeah.
that's no longer an issue. But also, I mean, what I learned in my time when I was full time taking care of a baby, I had absolutely no idea, and I thought myself of being quite empathic and to have learned a thing or two, but actually when you realize the level of demands that it puts upon yourself in terms of just, you're constantly 24/7 worrying and taking care, and is he sleeping, is he not sleeping, but it's also fantastic. I mean, the bond that you create and how much you feel close to this young life. So I think for me, I mean, I think the option is there. The more people will take that option, the more men will take the option of taking parental leave, the better it will be, because it will normalize it. So instead of being, oh, well, we know exactly who are the 3 guys that took parental leave, it should be, why is that guy not taking parental leave? We should flip the script in a provocative way, but also maybe in a visionary way. I think it should be made mandatory, because I don't think that a mother really has a lot of options when it comes to the months before and then the months after a birth. I mean, yes, you have some example of women that will work until the day before and they will start working 3 days after.
Yeah.
But first of all, I'm not sure those are virtuous example. But also, it's difficult, it's challenging. It's not something that you just, you need to have some time and really dedicate to the child and to yourself. So for me, if we provide that opportunity, if we want to really push the agenda, if we really want to decrease the gender gap, why not make it mandatory and say, okay, if there is a child, the man has to take 6 months off, or I don't know, 12 months on a part-time within the first 3 years or the first 5 years. Now, of course, that will create some concern, and we know our demographic is not where it needs to be. So it shouldn't be. It should be organized in a way that people don't feel this is going to be to their disadvantage professionally. Yeah. So everything is connected here. When we have when we normalize in the workplace that taking career breaks or taking maternity or parental leave is absolutely normal, the workplace is actually more enriched, it's more dynamic.
Yeah.
So the idea that if I make a child, I'm going to lose on a promotion. It's there for men and women, but especially for women, because men, okay, we might have a bit of sleepless night, but at the end of the day, we're gonna be we're still gonna be going to the office every day. Whereas for mothers, it's that time that is more difficult, and it should be sacred. So finally, my call is, it could be to the government, but it could also be to individual companies. Establish a policy where you really encourage people to take advantage of that possibility, and good things will happen. Again, nobody is so important and so indispensable that if they leave for 6 months, companies are going to fall apart.
Yeah.
It's also a little bit of, taking care of that ego that we all have, and realize that actually you might learn much more in those 6 months than in the previous 10 years when you are repeating the same job over and over.
Agree with you. Agree with you completely. And Sergio, I have to say thank you very much, because listening to all the things that you just said make me feel support and empowered. I have been empowered as well for a man that is sharing the life with me. And that is something that I appreciate a lot. So I consider that the man needs to be becoming part of the empowering women, as you will agree with me, and you have been living that experience. So really thank you for sharing your thoughts and your ideas of this, making this parental leave mandatory, and all the things that you have been shared with us today. Thank you very much for being here, Sergio.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for more episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.